So hello everyone. So before moving on to the topic, we will see a case scenario. And from this case scenario, let us take some important points that will fit into our topic today. So let me just read out the case. A 10-year-old child was brought to the hospital by his mother with complaints of migrating joint pain and swelling of the involved joint. On inquiry, the child had sore throat and fever 3 weeks back. On examination, a subcutaneous nodule was found on the extensor aspect of right elbow. On auscultation, the heart sounds were weak with tachycardia. So what are the carryover points from this case scenario is first the age. So the topic that we are going to see today is most associated with an engaged. So 10-year-old. Okay, so the first point is age. The second thing, that point I have highlighted in violet, migrating joint pain and swelling. It's another classical symptom presented by the patient with this disease. And if we dig into the past history, the mother had complained about the sore throat and fever. So we need to get the diagnostic reports and what is the causative organism, because that causative organism is going to play a role in our disease. And finally, a subcutaneous nodule. So there are 4 carryover points. 10-year-old child, which means this disease is going to be more common in an engaged. Next is migrating joint pain and swelling of the involved joint. Next is past history of sore throat and fever. So we need to investigate on, or we need to collect the laboratory reports of the causative organism concerned with the sore throat and fever. And finally, a subcutaneous nodule. So having these 4 points in the mind, I hope you all would have made some guesses, and I believe that all would have been right. So today's topic is rheumatic fever and then heart disease. So these are not actually two different entities, meaning to say these two do not have a different set of pathogenesis, different causes and all. Rheumatic fever will be the first thing that will be observed in a patient. And if this is going to progress over a period of time, that is going to lead on to rheumatic heart disease. And there is a very good statement given in Robbins. Rheumatic diseases licks the joints but bites the heart. Okay, we will just understand the statement at the end. Okay, so again, I will be repeating the statement, but you need to understand rheumatic disease, it licks the joints but bites the heart. Okay, so we'll just start off with the topic today. So first thing, we'll go with the definition. So this is a definition taken from Robbins. So fever, rheumatic fever. So first we should know whether it is acute or chronic, how it is mediated. Okay, so what is the mechanism that is going to involve, and what is the consequence? What is the cause? Okay, so these are the 4 components of a definition. So if you take first component, I told you that it is acute or chronic. So here we have it is an acute disease. Okay, next, how it is mediated. So it is going to be immunologically mediated. So there is going to be some immunological mechanism that actually mediates this disease. So it is immunologically mediated. What is the consequence? There is going to be a multi-system inflammatory disease. Okay, and what is the cause? Mainly because of group A streptococcal pharyngitis. Very important. If you remember, I told you the mother complained in the case history. She complained of sore throat and fever 3 weeks back. So we need to understand what is the causative organism of that. And if the laboratory report says it is a group A streptococcal, then of course it is a diagnosis of rheumatic fever. So it is an acute, immunologically mediated, multi-system inflammatory disease. So it involves different organs, and there is going to be inflammation in different organs. That is why inflammatory disease, multi-system, primarily because of group A streptococcal pharyngitis. And very important point that has to be noted. Okay, so it is an acute, immunologically mediated, multi-system inflammatory disease, primarily because of group A streptococcal pharyngitis. Okay, mostly if you take this rheumatic fever, will be because of a pharyngeal infection by group A streptococcus. But sometimes it can be also because of a group A streptococcal of skin. Okay, so group A streptococcal can affect various structures, and primarily it will affect the pharynx, that is the upper respiratory. But there is a possibility that it can affect the skin also. So in some cases out of 100, I can say 1 or 2 cases can be because of a group A streptococcal infection of the skin also. Okay, so this is about the introduction and the definition. Now we will move on to incidence. So if you remember me, in the case history, I told you we are going to talk about a disease that is going to happen in the engaged. Okay, so this disease is primarily in the engaged. So approximately between the age of 5 to 15 years, incidence is higher. Okay, and then if you take one predisposing factor of this disease is going to be poor economy and then overcrowding. Okay, so now it is not possible, right? But in general, poor economy, this had happened because of COVID, but this is not there. Okay, so poor economy and overcrowding, so age group and poor economy and overcrowding, so these are some two factors that I wanted to share here. Okay, so I have told about the definition. Please remember group A streptococcal pharyngitis, and this is the incidence. Now we will move on to manifestation. Always remember, as I told you, this fever, if it is going to progress for a longer time, it can affect your heart. Okay, and the most commonest presentation of the heart is going to be mitral valve stenosis. Okay, so initially we will have an acute carditis. Later it will progress to your chronic rheumatic disease where you will have mitral valve stenosis. Okay, so in this acute rheumatic carditis, there will be mitral regurgitation as given in Robbins. Okay, so initially there will be a mitral regurgitation. Okay, on chronic rheumatic disease, which means if it is going to progress for a longer time, this can lead on to mitral valve stenosis. Okay, so ultimately what you must remember, if the fever prolongs for a longer time, we are going to have the involvement of heart. So initially there's going to be mitral valve regurgitation. On chronic cases, there is going to be a mitral valve stenosis. So ultimately mitral valve is going to be involved in case of rheumatic heart disease. And very rarely, sometimes there can even be involvement of aortic valve. Okay, so these are the 2 points that you must remember. Okay, so mitral valve stenosis, and sometimes we can have this aortic valve involvement also. Okay, so now we will move on to pathogenesis, very important part. Okay, so now we will move on to pathogenesis. So if you take this pathogenesis, see, we will have two entities to be discussed. One is based on type 2 hypersensitivity reaction. Another one is based on type 4 hypersensitivity reaction. I hope you all know type 2 hypersensitivity, if you take it, is going to be antibody mediated. Okay, antibody mediated. Type 4, if you take it, is going to be more of T lymphocyte mediated. That is what we are going to discuss. So if you take here, we have this T cell components, that is cell mediated immunity, and here we have humoral immunity. So we have two mechanisms for the pathogenesis. Please listen, a very important slide. See, if you take a bacteria, we have something called virulence factors. Okay, so there will be many factors that is going to be associated with the pathogenicity of a particular organism. If you take group A streptococci, we will have capsule. Okay, we will have some specialized proteins and all that. Okay, one such important protein of streptococci, if you take, is something called as an M protein. Okay, so we have lots of carbohydrate antigens also to be discussed there, but we will just focus on this part. So if you take the streptococci, group A streptococci is going to have one of its virulence factors is going to be a M protein. Okay, so what is going to happen in general immunity? So there is a foreign body that is going to enter into our body. So we have this immune system that is actually going to generate antibodies against this particular organism, right? So what is going to happen here is the antibodies, as a case of humoral immunity, the antibodies are going to be produced against M proteins. Very good. But here what is the issue is, please understand, the structure of M protein of streptococci is similar to the cardiac proteins, which means you have streptococcal M protein, and on the other side I'm going to have a cardiac muscle proteins. If you see the structure of an M protein and the structure of the muscular protein, both are same. So what is going to happen eventually? These antibodies not only going to attack this M protein, but also that it is going to attack the cardiac proteins. Are you able to understand? These antibodies are meant for M proteins only. Very good. But what is the consequence here? The structure of a cardiac protein is similar to M protein also. So these antibodies are going to destroy this cardiac proteins also. So these antibodies, they cross react with the cardiac self antigen. So what is going to happen? There is going to be some issue with the cardiac. So you have a cardiac manifestation. Similarly, if you take T cells. It mainly you will have the CD4 plus T cells which is involved here. So that is going to activate some cytokines, macrophages and all that. That is going to act again on your tissues of your cardiac muscles. Okay, so eventually what is happening? Our body is trying to destroy only the streptococci. But unfortunately, if you take the antigenic factors that are concerned with streptococci is very similar to that of the proteins present in the cardiac muscle. So it is attacking a cardiac muscle also. So in simple, if you want me to tell, we have two mechanisms. You have an humoral mediated, the cell-mediated immunity mechanism, humoral immunity mediated mechanism. So humoral immunity is going to be type 2. So where the antibodies that is meant to be against the M proteins is also going to cross react with some cardiac self antigen because of structural similarity. Similarly, T cell, which is cell-mediated type 4 hypersensitivity reaction type, it is mainly because of CD4 plus type, wherein it is going to actually activate some cytokines and macrophages that is going to act with the glycoproteins present within the cardiac muscles also. So ultimately, it is going to be it is going to attack a cardiac muscles. Okay, so we'll make it that simple. Okay, I hope you understood the pathogenesis. Okay, so mainly because of group A streptococci pharyngitis. Next, features. So very important. Next, we will moving on to study this topic as a pathologist. So if you take features, we will be studying the morphological feature. We will be studying the, that is histological and then gross features. Okay. So first we will study the morphological, that is the histological features. So this is a slide. Okay. So if you take, can you appreciate bodies like this? So all these. So all these are your myocytes. Okay. So and if you are able to observe this body here, so like this, there are many bodies. So if you take the lesion of rheumatic disease in the myocardial muscle, you will have a foci. So there are going to be some bodies called as Ashkoff bodies. Okay, so if you take here Ashkoff bodies, it's a characteristic feature of an histological finding of a rheumatic heart disease. So the lesion in rheumatic heart disease is going to contain some bodies called as Ashkoff bodies. And if you take this Ashkoff bodies, okay, it is going to contain a foci of lymphocytes, which means in some areas you can find lymphocytes and there will be some plasma cells and all that. And there is going to be a plump of activated macrophages. Okay, so if you take inside the bodies, there are going to be many macrophages present, and those plump of activated macrophages is called as Antishkoff cells. Please understand, you will find Ashkoff bodies that is going to contain a lymphocyte, there is going to be some plasma cells, and also in the Ashkoff bodies itself, there is going to be a plump of macrophages present, activated macrophages, and that is called as Antishkoff cell. So if you take, I have just zoomed this and I have put here. So this is going to be an Antishkoff cell, which means it is going to contain a plump of activated macrophages. So this is a macrophage. Okay. So if you observe the nuclear material of the macrophage, it is something like this, right? Can you able to see that? It is like this. So if you take in the nucleus, the chromatin material of these macrophages are going to be like a caterpillar-like. Okay, that is why caterpillar-like structure is also associated with this Antishkoff bodies. Okay, so histologically, if you are going to observe the lesion, you will have Ashkoff bodies. So all these that you see is the Ashkoff bodies, and inside the Ashkoff bodies, in some areas, so suppose I say this is your Ashkoff bodies, in some foci you will have the lymphocytes. If you want, I'll just put it that in red. Okay, so you will have some foci of lymphocytes, and then there will be some plasma cells, and mainly there is going to be plump of activated macrophages. Okay, and this activated macrophages found inside the Ashkoff body is called as Antishkoff cells. And if you observe the nuclear material of this Antishkoff cell, the chromatin material are going to be thread-like and fragmented, forming a caterpillar-like structure. So this is the histological finding. So you remember two A's, one A for Ashkoff bodies, another A for Antishkoff cells, and you should also remember this caterpillar-like structure. CLS, okay, caterpillar-like structure. Now, morphologically, gross are what you are going to see. I told you it will mostly involve a mitral valve, but in some cases it can involve an aortic valve also. And please remember, this rheumatic disease, there is going to be a fibrinoid necrosis and a myocardial lesion. So you will have myocardial lesion as well as a fibrinoid necrosis that is going to take place over the cells of the heart. Okay, so such a fibrinoid necrosis and a lesion in the aortic valve is going to project as some vegetation. What is the meaning of vegetation? Some projection is called as a vegetation. Okay, some outgrowth I can say. In a farm, what you call a vegetation? Some growth, right? Growth of crops is called as a vegetation. Similarly, in our body also, some outgrowth in a structure is called as vegetation. So what is going to happen here is, if there is going to be a fibrinoid necrosis and a lesion in the aortic valve, it can present as some vegetations which is called as verrucae or verrucae. So if you take this region, can you observe some projections? These are called as verrucae. Okay, so what is a verrucae? I'll repeat, these are the vegetations that is going to be arising in the fibrinoid necrosis and lesion seen in the aortic valve. So these vegetations are concerned with the aortic valve. Okay, next is, there can be something called as McCallum plague. So you know what is a plague, right? So all these yellow regions are your McCallum plague. So this can be observed in left atrium. So the same lesion and the fibrinoid necrosis in left atrium sometimes can be precipitated as a plague, and that is called as a McCallum plague. Okay, so histologically we have seen two ways: Ashkoff bodies, Antiscoff cells. And grossly, if you take one thing in your aortic valve, you are going to have something called as a verrucae, and in your left atrium, you are going to have something called as a McCallum plague. Okay, these are all some possibilities. But the most common thing, as I told, we saw that mitral valve stenosis is the most common virtual representation of a rheumatic heart disease. Okay, so if you take mitral valve, what are the things that you must know? See, remember, in case of a mitral valve, there will be thickening of your leaflet. Okay, thickening of your leaflet. And then there is going to be commissural fusion and shortening. What are they? Leaflet thickening. So if you take, there is going to be leaflet thickening and there is going to be a commissural fusion and shortening. So what is the meaning of commissure? Say suppose I give you a structure like this. Okay, a oval structure. The ends are actually called as a commissure. Okay, so just imagine you are just taking a length about say a 10 centimeter length thread, and you are just going to make a circle. So what you will do, you are just going to have two knots on the either side along the diameter, I can say. Okay, so these knots are actually called as a commissure. Okay, so if this commissure is actually going to shorten and it is going to thicken, say suppose you are going to wound this 10 centimeter thread twice or thrice. So what is going to happen? The knot is going to thicken, but this oval size is actually going to decrease. Can you imagine? Or a single knot na podram appadina, the cavity will be bit enlarged. The adhe vande I am wounding again and again. So what will happen? The knot thickness will increase, but in the lumen radu onnume illama poidum, right? That is called as a commissural fold shortening and thickening. So in mitral valve stenosis, you will have the thickening of the leaflet, and there is going to be a commissural fold shortening and thickening. So ultimately, if you take this is a mitral valve and there is going to be a commissural fold, as this commissural fold is shortening and thickening, the lumen of your mitral valve will decrease. Okay, and it is going to appear like a fish mouth appearance or a button hole, okay, or a button like appearance. Are you able to understand? Again, I'll repeat, commissure is nothing but two ends of a structure. So for that, I gave you an example. Take a thread and you're going to tie two knots on either side. Okay, so if you're going to wound the same thread again and again, so the thickness of this knot will increase. Okay, thickness of the knot will increase, but the lumen is going to decrease. The same thing you observe here. So these are your commissures. So if the commissure is folding is going to shorten and thicken, automatically size of the mitral valve is going to decrease, and it is going to appear like a fish mouth appearance or a button-like appearance. Hope you are clear. So see, there were many terminologies. Caterpillar-like we saw in case of an Antishkov cells where we have macrophages. Okay. Next, if you take verrucae, we saw in the aortic valve. Next, we saw in left atrium there is a McCallum plague, and next a fish mouth-like appearance or a button-like appearance in case of a mitral valve stenosis. So these are the features. I hope you are clear. Now we will move on to clinical features. Okay, so hereafter it is going to be very easy. So these are the characteristic symptoms. Okay, so Sydenham's chorea, I'll tell you what is that. Sydenham's chorea. Next, erythema marginatum, subcutaneous nodule. If you remember the case scenario on the extensor aspect of the forearm, there was a subcutaneous nodule and then arthritis. So migrating joint pain and swelling can be because of inflammation of a joint, so that is called as arthritis. But there it was a migrating joint pain, which means the first week patient will have swelling and pain in the knee joint. The second week it can go to elbow joint. To third week the ankle joint. So in case of a rheumatic heart disease, there is going to be various joints involved. That is why if you remember in the case scenario, we have this migrating joint pain and swelling of the involved joint. So please understand, the characteristic clinical feature is a migratory polyarthritis. Poly means many, arthritis means inflammation of joints. So when it involves migratory polyarthritis, that is the classical symptom of a rheumatic heart disease. Apart from that, we'll have this erythema marginatum, so all these red patches over the skin. Okay, and then subcutaneous nodule on the extensor aspect of the forearm, and then Sydenham's chorea. What is the Sydenham's chorea is? Please understand. See, chorea, this is because of a rapid, if you observe this GIF, patient is lying. Okay, just for some time he will be silent. And see, there is some movements that he is continuously exhibiting. So he is lifting his leg, okay, he is crawling, and suddenly he is giving work to his hand. So this rapid involuntary movement, okay, because of a streptococcal infection is called as a Sydenham's chorea. In general, chorea is a rapid involuntary movement because of some lesion. If it is going to involve a group A streptococcal infection, then that chorea is called as Sydenham's chorea. So where patients present with rapid involuntary movements of your limbs. Okay, so what are the characteristic clinical features? Sydenham's chorea, migrating polyarthritis, erythema marginatum, subcutaneous nodule. Very important. These four are the classical symptoms. Okay. Now, diagnosis. So we have understood what is the disease, how the disease is coming, and what the patient will say to us. Now, how will you diagnose this? Very important. For that, we have something called Jones criteria. Okay. So, as a physician, if you encounter this patient, you should remember something. What are that is? You can confirm your diagnosis as rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease if any of the 2 of the 4 symptoms appears in the patient. In the 4 symptom, if patient comes with any of these 4 listed 2 symptoms, 4ல 2 இருந்ததுனா, then you can diagnose it as a rheumatic heart disease. This is one way. Okay, so if you take all these typical manifestations will come under a major criteria like your migratory polyarthritis, carditis, which we saw. We have this acute rheumatic carditis that will progressive. Okay, then erythema marginatum, Sydenham chorea, subcutaneous nodule. So all these classical presentation are major criteria. Okay, so if any 2 of this major criterial presentations is shown by a patient, you can very well diagnose it as a rheumatic fever. Or else, if there is one major, like say suppose patient presents with a migratory polyarthritis or the subcutaneous nodule, and there is a fever or arthralgia, all this minor criteria, then you can probably go with 1 major, 2 minor. Okay, so this is the Jones criteria. Okay, so Jones criteria, he has actually categorized the presentations into 2, a major criteria, minor criteria. Major criteria includes the typical presentation of a rheumatic heart disease. Minor criteria is usually happening in case of every disease, okay, like your fever, or in case of any inflammatory disorders, there is going to be increased ESR, there is going to be CRP being seen. Okay, if you remember in atherosclerosis also, the inflammation is the one risk factor for atherosclerosis. and that in that also we will have this elevated CRP. So CRP, ESR, all these are some common things that happen in any inflammatory disease. Okay, so Joan has divided like this, and he said, as a physician, you can diagnose or you can confirm it is a rheumatic fever if patient presents with 2 major or 1 major and 2 minor. Okay, so this is about Jones criteria. And other minor diagnostic serology you do, so anti-streptolysin O. So streptolysin O is going to be a virulence factor for streptococci, and then antibodies against DNase B and anti-hyaluronidase antibodies. Okay, so these three, so if the patient presents with these 3 antibodies, then you can probably think of this. And acute phase reactions, as I told you, as in case of any inflammatory disorder, we will have an elevated ESR and then a CRP. So this can also be a probable diagnosis. Okay, and then if you take what are the complications, actually I forgot to include the complication in the thank you slide. Okay, so if you take the complications, it can probably manifest as infective endocarditis. So we will study in a separate video what is an infective endocarditis. So infective, which means followed by an infection that is going to be inflammation of the heart, right? So if there is some bacterial infection, all that, it is one of the complications. So rheumatic heart disease can probably lead to infective endocarditis, or there can be a thrombus formation, or there can be an emboli being formed. Okay, so all these are some common complications of a rheumatic heart fever. Okay, so I would like to thank you all for listening to my session. We will be meeting in the next session. Thank you.